Hello everyone, welcome to Art History. It's Dr. Whidden and I am on my YouTube channel, History Surfer, and usually it's Dr. A here, so we'll go with that. If you've not been to the channel before, this is the introduction to what is art history. So for both art history classes, ARH 2050, that's the early one, as well as ARH 2051. All right, so what are we talking about today? Art historians, what do they do? What is art history? Essentially, people always, want to conflate. It's easy, it's history and art. Yeah, that's true. It is both. But it's also analyzing artwork based on symbolism, the iconography, and also talking about the various elements in the different art pieces that we look at. Art is something that helps us to understand cultures and also how to understand how civilization developed. It is a way to develop critical thinking, and art history is really, in practice, what kind of history should we explore? I mean, those are, I think, the questions that are fundamental to this. When we look at art, we study objects considered within their time period. And I think that's important, as you have to put them into the context of each period. It's not just the piece of art. It's when it was made, who did it, why did they do it. The word art derives from the Latin ars, which originally meant skill or craft. And when we start studying art history, and it really becomes a discipline about the Renaissance, we look at some of the early books, we have to see what we're looking at. And artists their work has to be analyzed and studied based on what we know of that period. Now, traditionally, art historians begin studying the art historians of the Renaissance, art of Egypt and Rome. And we find this is a very subjective cultural construct that says all art begins at this time. But it's also where we see the idea of art has to be an innovation. But when we look at Egypt and the Byzantines, art was more concerned with the preservation of things. So it really becomes quite difficult to discern what is art, what is artifacts. Artifacts are interesting, but art, I suggest, and I know your textbook does talk about this, it is something that has the potential to move us and make us think about things emotionally and intellectually. It is a fundamental part of the human condition, and any artifact, any piece of art gives us insight into that. It has the potential to make us think and feel through the visual experiences we have. We have to make sense of the past. Historians must understand that the early art historians, while they emphasize the European tradition, we now have to focus on a more global aspect and debate how to reconcile the discipline of European intellectual origins and the problematic colonial legacies with contemporary multiculturalism, and how to write art history in this global era. So I think we have a bigger job ahead of us. When we talk about art, we have to talk using the language of art historians. And we have to talk specifically about each piece as far as the age of the piece. And we do that using physical evidence, documentary evidence, and internal evidence, and stylistic evidence. So when we think of that, we're dating things. This would be what I would consider documentary evidence or internal evidence. Probably that fits better, because I know, seeing that the Eiffel Tower here has begun construction, we know that we're talking somewhere between 1887 and 1889. So internal evidence is really helpful. We also use style to talk about art, and there's different types of styles, such as period styles, which refer to a specific time, such as the High Renaissance, something like that. This becomes problematic. Period styles, it can be, there's lots of influences that make that harder to do as we come more into the modern period. We also have regional styles. These are linked to geography, provenance, or place of origin, and they definitely provide us good clues because they have certain characters. I always think of the highwaymen from Florida when I think of a regional style. Definitely something linked to specifically this region, specifically South Florida, and so very much about that, whole genre and how it emerges in Florida, early Florida. And we also can use personal style. Personal style, some of it is so distinct, you can't miss it. And that's why some art historians become professionals in identifying certain people's works, like Rembrandt, and the Rembrandt project was a big deal as people, who specialize in that really began to debate personal style. Iconography can also influence the art historian because icons are very specific for different times. An example here I have when we have early Christian imagery emerging, the lamb represents Christ, the dove represents the Holy Spirit. And icons can help us definitely understand things. For instance, a very complex image filled with icons is this Jan van Eyck, the Arnolfini portrait. And we see a ton of icons here, and we'll just talk about some of them. Obviously, this is going to be a part of the second class for art history, and we'll go in depth. The little dog is at her feet is a symbol of fidelity, and it's often seen in portraits where women are portrayed. You notice the dog's over towards her as being having fidelity to their husband, being loyal to their husband. Dogs are absolutely, the symbol of loyalty. Another thing in there is the discarded shoes, and they're a symbol of the sanctity of marriage. These are very, very much about this period. We don't have portraits like this that are filled with these kind of icons today. So very much, I would know this is where this was about the time frame just by looking at it. Another thing that we have to consider too is who is the patron? Who paid for it? You can definitely tell if there's a certain agenda, if you will. Also, when you have no signature in a piece, that's a hard thing, but there can be schools of artists who are working together, and sometimes that helps to find the artist. But another thing would be the patron, and sometimes people forget. It's always really relative, the importance of patrons, but it is like something like this. This is the Emperor Augustus. He always demanded that his images portray him as a youthful person, even though we know when this one was done, he was probably in his 60s. And so art history is filled with things that intersect with other disciplines, especially history. It is interdisciplinary, and I hope you don't forget that. I'm looking forward to having you in the class, and this is the introduction to art history. Peace out, everyone. I'll see you in class. Bye.